Spain just won the World Cup with a psychological weapon that the coach revealed in public the night before the final, but nobody noticed. A reporter asked Luis de la Fuente about the old saying that nobody remembers the runner-up. And his exact response was, "I'd be happy to reach a World Cup final every year and lose. What mattered," he said, "was earning the right to fight for the title." This sounds like the philosophy of a loser, but 24 hours later, he was holding the trophy. And he did not win despite that answer. He won precisely because of it. That answer was the psychological weapon. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how it works. What the psychological underpinning of the elite performance that Spain displayed on the pitch. I'll prove to you that needing to win is the exact reason why you lose. And why detachment is an engineered system that allows you to show up at your best when it matters most. I'm León Castillo, founder of Selfmastered, founder of Performance Institute, where we help founders scale 3 times faster through neuroscience and data. But first, let's talk about the numbers of the game because they are absolutely absurd. Spain shot 20 times, Argentina just 2. Spain put 12 shots on target, Argentina put 0. Argentina didn't attempt a single shot in the first half. They never touched the ball inside Spain's box. 2 Spanish goals were wrongly disallowed, and Spain had nearly twice the possession. It ended 1-0, but you and I both know that it should have been at least 5-0. Now, I'm Spanish, so I'm biased. I'm 37. I've been a Real Madrid fan since I was a kid, so I've watched a few hundred matches in my life. And I can honestly say this is the most dominant final performance I've personally ever seen. And the man who engineered it spent the whole tournament saying things that sound wrong, like, "I'll be happy to lose." Or after one of our most dominant wins against Saudi Arabia, he told the press, "Satisfaction can kill you." This sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. It's a beautifully engineered psychological weapon that made us champion. And here's how it works. Winning in anything, in life, in business, in sports, is decided by the relationship between 2 minds. The conscious side of your mind is what sets the goal. The subconscious decides whether the goal is real and available to you. And every level of winning is a degree of alignment between those 2 minds. And this World Cup displayed every single one. See, level 1 is what everybody does. It's just wanting to win. When you want to win at something, there's typically 0 alignment because you may very well want something that you know is out of reach. So the subconscious never really takes the goal seriously. Like, think about it. There were 48 teams that entered the World Cup. Every single team wanted to win, but most of those teams put on mediocre performances. Why? Because desire collapses the moment the work gets hard. There's nothing underneath holding it up. So wanting is worth nothing. Now, level 2 is believing you can win. Here, there's friction between the 2 minds because when you believe something, you consciously accept the plan, but you subconsciously truly don't. This is the level of the teams that prepare for 4 years, do everything right, show up full of hope, and then croak in the quarterfinal. And this was Spain for most of my adult life. And this is the most dangerous level because you have your expectations sky high. Everything you do feels like progress, but then you end up sabotaging yourself. Believing without expecting to win is pure sabotage. You do all the work, and then at the last minute, your mind underneath bets against you. The ultimate level is level 3, expecting to win. When you have full alignment, when the conscious mind knows what to do and how to get what it wants. When the subconscious is fully convinced and expects that thing to happen. So there's no friction. The 2 sides of the mind operate as one. There's no friction, there's no doubt, there's no self-sabotage. And there's also no excitement either, because excitement requires a certain degree of uncertainty. But at this level, the outcome, the win you're after, stops feeling like hope. It feels like the natural consequence of doing what you've been training for. This was Spain in the final. And not only on the final, not only this past month. Spain had this 38th consecutive match without defeat in the final. This is the longest unbeaten run in the history of international football. And they keep breaking the record by the act of expecting to win every game, but disengagement from the outcome. Because everybody wants to win, but very few intimately, subconsciously expect to. And that expectation is the psychological weapon, because it dictates your performance. And this isn't just me saying it. There's decades of research on this. The most notable is Albert Bandura's concept of self-efficacy, which says that your belief in your own capability predicts how you perform, how long you persist, and which goals you even dare to attempt. So luck does not determine your results in the long term. Neither does your coach, your partner, your team, or some other miracle intervention. It's your expectations. What you settle for is what dictates your performance. Now, there's a fourth state. I wouldn't consider it a level at all, which is when you force yourself to need to win. Needing to win stems from a place of lack. So it hijacks your best intention. This is when the doubt in your subconscious that doesn't truly believe it's possible doesn't stay quiet. It seizes control of your performance and drives it with fear, and makes your conscious mind mistake ambition for urgency. And this is why every time you need something, it doesn't happen, because it guarantees that you perform worse at the exact moment that it matters most. Instead of being executing, your mind is busy defending. The desperate man that needs to win doesn't even play the game. He plays his fear of losing the game. And this was Argentina in the final. And notice something, the wanter and the needer carry the same doubt. But in the wanter, the doubt sits idle. The pursuit runs on fantasy. In the needer, the doubt takes the wheel and the pursuit runs on fear. Nor fantasy nor fear deliver the outcome you want. So it's extremely important that you never need any outcome that you chase. Instead, architect your performance so you expect to win, because expecting to win honors the game. You bring your best input and you accept whatever verdict happens. When you need to win, you honor your own ego and you demand a verdict that aligns with your preferences, which is exactly why it never works. And think about how the match went, because the final tested exactly this. For 105 straight minutes, Spain put 12 shots on target. 12. Argentina put 0. And the score stayed 0-0 for 105 minutes, which is blatantly unfair. But there was something formidable in the way. Emiliano Martinez, Argentina goalkeeper, who made 11 saves, the most ever in a World Cup final. For any other team, that would have broken it. Because remember the ladder. If Spain had needed to win, they would be hijacked, forcing plays, abandoning structure, chasing instead of expecting, and Argentina knew it, which is why Argentina didn't really play the game. They offered chaos, fouls, provocation, every invitation to turn the final into a street fight, which is the only way they could had a chance of winning. And no, I'll keep this video clean. Don't get me started on the lack of sportsmanship of the Argentinian team. But Argentina, they couldn't mentally manage themselves because they were playing for a story, the perfect farewell for the greatest player of all time. But Spain was playing for the love of the game, honoring the game, honoring their training and the protocols. So they kept the same tempo, the same pattern, the same patience from minute 1 to minute 106, when they were finally able to score. They played like a team that knew the goal was a mathematical consequence of running the process the right way. And I know that if Messi or any other Argentinian player had scored early, the story would have changed, but the behavior would not have, because Spain looked at minute 6 exactly the same way that it looked at minute 60 and exactly the same way that it looked at minute 106. That's the whole point of elite performance. And as I said, in minute 106, the consequence arrived. And this is true across any endeavor of life. The scoreboard lacks the inputs. Every elite performer knows that. So your job in business, with your family, with your personal life, is to keep hammering the inputs until the score takes care of itself. Now, if you're thinking, nice story, but how do I know this is real and not just a beautiful narrative by a proud Spaniard? Well, this is a beautiful narrative. I am a proud Spaniard. But all of what I'm just sharing is based on performance science. I'll give you just 3 angles to it. Angle number 1 is that pressure and stress makes you watch yourself. And research by Cian Baylock on choking shows that pressure shifts your attention from automatic execution, which is what you need to succeed, to self-monitoring. So when you need to win, you observe yourself instead of playing, and your performance collapses under self-scrutiny. This is like saying the pianist who thinks about her fingers misses the note. If you obsess over winning a sales call, you fumble the sales call. Angle number 2 is how your body reacts between threat and challenge. Jim Blaskovic's research separates 2 states in high-stakes moments, like a World Cup final. If you read the moment as a challenge, your resources meet the demand, and every system, your cardiovascular system, your attention, everything that pertains to your performance moves to match that. But if you read it as a threat, you move it the other way. You become little. So expecting to win is to challenge appraisal, but needing to win is threat response. And finally, 3, dopamine is a pursuit chemical, not a reward chemical. It means it fires on anticipation, not on arrival. If you anchor it to the process and you have drive available every single day. If you anchor it to the outcome, your motivation becomes scarce and binary. You run on fumes between wins. So Spain was happy to be playing the game, and they were secreting dopamine every time they made a successful pass, which means every second. But Argentina needed to win in order to allow themselves to enjoy. They had made that contract to perform below their capacity because they needed to win. And there's a detail that I absolutely love about the final. The fact that the winning goal was not even scored by a superstar. It wasn't Rodri, it wasn't Lamine Yamal, it wasn't Cucurella. It was scored by a substitute who had not scored a single goal in the entire World Cup. A player who heard the criticism of the whole country for years, myself included. I'm sorry, Ferran, I doubted you endlessly, and I'll own that. Because when it matters most, you showed up. That player is Ferran Torres. The most unlikely of them all finished the job. And in his own words, after the match, he said, I feel a huge relief because I've been criticized throughout the whole tournament. Now, think about what a mind serving his ego would have done in that moment. A man that is chased and hunted by criticism and wants to prove himself right, he would force a hero play or hide from it. Ferran did neither. He literally went into the pitch, ran the protocols, played the game as he had been done hundreds of times before, expecting to eventually score. And he eventually did. And it paid him with a World Cup. And that's by design, not luck. That is the core source of Spain power. Because our scoring has been spread across the whole tournament. Oyarzabal scored a lot in the group stage. Porro scored 2 of the first international goals ever. Torres in the final. No single star carried the load. We have no Mbappe, no Messi, no Haaland. Our top scorer is indeed Oyarzabal, a wholesome dude who's as surprised as you and me that he scored 5 times. And he didn't even score when it mattered most, which is the final. But it doesn't matter because the Spanish team has engineered a performance level that allows anyone to perform at an absolute peak. It has created the condition for let everybody shine. And they scored 14 or 15 goals and conceding just 1 goal, which is the most dominant performance in the history of the World Cup. Never been done before. The ingredient that makes all of this possible is called psychological safety. Amy Edmondson's research about this shows that when a team carries the pressure together, the individual threat response stays low. So there's no cognitive load related to execution, which means that everybody can give their absolute best. This is the secret psychological weapon that De La Fuente engineered. And mid-tournament, he even said something that also sounds wrong, which is that everybody needs to stay calm because satisfaction can kill you. So he's detached from losing, he's detached from winning, he's detached from the ego, and that's exactly why Spain won. And once you get the ego out of the way and you detach from winning and losing, the most powerful performance state emerges. And that is joy and fun. Because fun and joy is what happens when conscious and subconscious operate as one. There's no pressure left to feel. Watch the final again with this in mind. Lamine Yamal, for instance, 19 years old, played the highest stake match in football like a street game because he was absolutely aligned with what he needed to do. Baruch Spinoza, an English philosopher 400 years ago, already wrote, Joy is a man's passage from a lesser to a greater perfection. Joy is not what you get from winning. That is how Argentinians interpret it. Joy is the state in which you become the person who wins. That is a winner. The fuel decides the outcome. But when you serve the ego, you run on fear, and fear narrows your attention. But instead, when you honor the game, when you serve the game, you run on joy. And research by Barbara Fredrickson shows positive emotion literally broadens performance. You get more attention, more creativity, more joy, everything improves. Joy, fun, flow allows you to see more of the fuel. And it's also the only fuel that never runs out, because you are in the game for the sake of the game. That is called autotelic motivation. And this is why there's only two ways to execute in life. One is to push, where everything is a war. But that works until it stops working, because the cost of each day exceeds its return. At some point, if you don't enjoy what you do, you burn out. The better way is pull. When you move towards a hard thing because not moving feels worse, because you are compelled to show up, because showing up, honoring the game allows you to put on your best performance and feel the most alive. That is how you succeed, not by pushing, but by being pulled. And I know you may have heard that in order to succeed, you need to become obsessed and you need to grind and hustle. Well, whoever told you that, he wasn't lying, but he didn't have the right word to describe what made him successful, which is alignment, not obsession. What people discuss as obsession, sacrifice, really is alignment, absence of internal resistance, being pulled towards a destination you cannot fathom not getting. That's the key that made Spain successful, because they were happy just to be playing and they were performing as if had already won, which is what they did. That's the psychological weapon that De La Fuente displayed. They were happy to lose, which gave them the opportunity to have a chance of winning. The Argentinians could not fathom losing, which is why they never showed up to play. And before you felt this under, okay, this is just have fun. No, Spain was the most protocol-obsessed team in the tournament. Joy is not the alternative to rigor. I'm not saying just go out there and have fun. No, joy is what rigor feels like when the belief system underneath is clean, when you're not sabotaging yourself, when you're not getting in your own way. And if you're a founder, if you run any sort of business, this applies to you, because what decided the World Cup final is what decides your success. Your business runs the same 105 minutes on you every single week. Every single week you show up at full effort. Every single week you have a lagging scoreboard. Every single week you're dealing with chaos. Every single week you feel you're short on potential because you haven't got the outcome you sought. Every founder knows the state. Every founder knows the feeling when things go up, you feel like a genius. When things go down, you feel like a fraud. Everything that happens in your business becomes a referendum on you. We all been there. We've all checked the metrics to find out how we should feel about ourselves. We all have polished the task that we couldn't fail at and avoided the one that we could fail at just to feel better. We've all felt how operating from ego, not the game, felt like. And that poisons the soul of the journey, the soul of the pursuit. So learn from the Spanish team. Integrate De La Fuente's advice. Realize that the most important intervention that you can do for your success is to fall in love with the game you're playing and honor it. And understand that the moment you feel bad about not getting what you want is when you've slipped from expectation into need. Self-judgment is the sign. And the cure is not to care less. The cure is to understand winning as a duty, but never as an obsession. Because elite performers of any kind, athletes, performers, operators, they don't chase winning out of desperation. They pursue it because their standards and system make it unreasonable not to win. So make winning your duty, but not your obsession. Never obsess about something that would inevitably happen if you just keep hammering the right inputs. You only have a right to your labor, not the fruits of your labor. But if you learn how to turn every failure into feedback instead of a verdict on who you are, and you keep taking risks and you keep getting better and you keep doing things the obsessed can no longer avoid, you will eventually figure it out. Exactly as Spain figured it out. And in 7 years of training founders one-on-one, I've never seen anyone become obsessed about winning and end up winning. It's always the opposite. It's obsessed with mastery, obsessed about nailing every process, let go of the outcome, and see how fast everything changes. Because every player on that pitch, every Spanish player who now are taunted as the best in the world, they starting playing football for free as kids, for nothing. And you started your business in the same way if you think about it. But they kept honoring the game. Even at the highest stakes, they keep in love with the game. But those who lose, somewhere along the way, started defending the ego, started defending the need to win because Messi had to retire or whatever. So how do you fix this? Well, there's 4 steps. The first one is audit your dopamine anchor. Where does your motivation live? Is it in the daily execution? Is it in the game? Are you in love with what you're doing? Or is it in the outcome? Do you need to win in order to feel satisfied? Because if a bad revenue day ruins your training, your sleep, your mood, you're living in the outcome. And there's no chance you would succeed if that's the case. So move your dopamine anchor to the process. Then step number 2 is to design the doubt out of the system. The brain can't model uncertainty, so it defaults to fear. Unless the controllable layer is defined precisely, so there's nothing left to fear. In other words, you work your system so well that you just expect to win, and you make it a matter of volume. You know exactly what needs to happen for you to succeed. Spain took 20 shots and scored on the 20th. With enough shots, with enough cold email, with enough approaches, your outcome you seek stops being hope and starts being a statistical certainty. You suffocate the doubt with volume and precision. And if systems keep failing, you don't spiral because it's not about you. It's about the systems. Analyze the system with emotion, tie it on the loop, and run it again. See, at the highest level, your self-worth is not at stake. Your training, your processes certainly are. And that's a good thing because you can improve them. Which leads me to 3, reframe the identity. Your identity is not someone who wins. Your identity is the one of a master. You must be mastering your craft. Because if you fuse your identity with the process, if you are the guy who makes everything work smoothly, you stop negotiating with yourself. You don't force yourself to execute. You just default to execution. You keep the mind into what you needed to be focused on, which is the process and system that you will deliberately improve until it yields the outcome you want. That's the biggest shift, the thing that is going to transform your performance. Because if you're precise in every rep, present in every execution, growth follows. It's inevitable. And then 4th, solve for joy weekly. I know this may sound soft, but if you ask any elite athlete or elite founder, they all say the best work is done in a state of joy and fun. Because joy is the sign that conscious and subconscious are aligned. When you're not happy with what you're doing, that is data. It means that there's something in the underneath belief system that needs surgery. And the fastest audit that you can do is, what would you do if nobody ever knew, if you were guaranteed to succeed, but you could not tell anyone, no post, no screenshot, no one to impress. If you know that you would still be doing what you're doing right now, you are in alignment. So keep doing it because it's going to work out. Now, if you don't really know, what would that be? Or you know for certain that what you're working on isn't it, you need to re-architect that belief system because you will not prevail over a competitor that shows up to play the game you absolutely need to win at just for fun. And De La Fuente, the Spanish coach, prays every morning in gratitude for another day. He does not ask for results by his own account. He asks for gratitude. He prays for gratitude. And then he goes and coaches the best team in World Cup history. Honors the game and life so much and accepts the outcome so well that the outcome ended up being the best anyone has ever had in the game. So the men who are not afraid of losing are the hardest men on earth to beat because they don't need the victory, but that's precisely why they win. So stop honoring your ego, honor the game, stop needing to win, design the systems so that winning is inevitable and then expect it because the score always takes care of itself. I promise you that. If this landed, I work with 100 founders every single year since 2020 to engineer the shift between average and elite performance. If you want to succeed without winning being an emotional event and just becoming a standard, you know where to find me. And I'll finish by saying, Viva España.